Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Customer Success Skills Exchange. I am super excited to have Jeff Martin here with us today to showcase the new features and for everything for his demo systems. I know we've got a packed agenda, so I won't belabor the point. I will drop the agenda in the chat. Jeff, the stage is yours.
Awesome, and good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. What I'd like to do today is share with you some updates on the demo systems. So I started at GitLab about 8 months ago now, and over the time we've done a lot of iteration, a lot of changes. And the last time that we talked at length about it was at Sales Kickoff approximately 3 months ago. For those of you who have not followed along with what we've been doing, this will be a great overview and kind of a catch up of where we were and where we're at and where we're going. And those of you who have followed along, I have a little more update on the longer term vision and where we're headed next. So you'll find some value in that. So as we go through the deck, feel free to click through on the agenda doc. The presentation is linked there. There is nothing overly sensitive in this presentation, so there's no need to worry about that. However, just for the time brevity, I am going to skip through a couple of the reference slides. And so if you like to see them, feel free to check them out in the presentation on your own. But with that, let's go ahead and kick it off here. So one of the questions that I've gotten asked a couple times in the last month, I didn't realize it was a question, but I realized it's a good one to answer, is why do we have demo systems? Well, we could just use GitLab.com, we can just use your own, and it all comes down to efficiency, dog fooding, and setting ourselves up to be able to tell the same story consistently, no matter which infrastructure we're using. And so what we're trying to do is build a consistent story, consistent message. Right now, demo data is our next initiative, and we want to be able to have a platform to showcase that on, especially as our partners come
Sorry to interrupt, Jeff. Sherrod, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Carry on, Jeff.
Excellent. Thank you. I was starting to hear it as well. But essentially be able to tell the same story, and as our partners come on board, give them a consistent platform to be able to tell our story as well. So that's what we're about, is efficiency and making it easy for all of us, including the SAs, TAMs, PSEs, and the wider GitLab community to be able to showcase GitLab as easy as possible without you having to be a server administrator to showcase something simple. So a little bit of history on this and where we're at. We get a lot of questions on, where was I2P? Where are we going? What's the replacement? And the short version is that I2P is being split into 2 GitLab instances. Historically, it was kind of a free-for-all, and you could do whatever you needed in that sandbox environment. However, there were some consistency challenges, reliability challenges, and if we made a configuration change, there wasn't really tracking to figure out where it happened and how to reproduce it. What we have now is a Terraform and Ansible built environment with 2 instances, one of which you're probably familiar with if you've been using it. And the second is online now, but I'm still setting a couple things up. So expect an announcement of that in the next week or 2. GitLab Core in the US is essentially everyone gets their own sandbox group. This is very similar to what you see on GitLab.com, but it just gives you a safe environment without worrying about what you're going to break. The second EU one is something that we're focused on the demo data side of things. And what this will be is it'll be a mock of a customer implementation of GitLab Omnibus instance. And it'll have all sorts of demo data projects, kind of the sample company structure, the group structure. Everyone have admin rights, and it'll be one shared cumulative welcome to Acme Company. Here's what your GitLab instance will look like. We're still working on some of the details of how the content's going to look in there, but the infrastructure itself is up and running now. And ultimately, the idea is that if you're trying to do a sandbox, you'll end up on the US region. If you're trying to do something a little more demo data driven with something that's already been prepared for you, you'll be using the EU region. And so US will be perpetual, EU will be ephemeral. And as we go, we'll iterate and we'll enhance and go through this. But that's just kind of the where we were and where we're going perspective of it. To step up another 10,000 feet, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the different environments that are available to you? You've probably heard of Demo Cloud by now. Demo Cloud is our moniker for the I2P replacement. And effectively all it is, it's an omnibus as a service infrastructure. So if you see gitlabdemo.com, that's our management infrastructure, and gitlabdemo.cloud as a domain name, or the FQDN, is the what's going on for the demo cloud itself, right? So that's where that comes from. The training cloud is something that is right now it's using the demo cloud infrastructure, and what we're doing is providing short-term sandbox accounts for the students in our classes and workshops. We are spinning that off into its own omnibus instance so we can have better control of version changes, capacity increases, so on and so forth. Another aspect of this is other sandboxes that are a little more do what you need to do. We're not going to be able to support you too much, but we'll give you the accounts to do so. Container sandbox, you're probably familiar with this, is that most people on the team have a Kubernetes cluster that's been provisioned for them. That is going to continue on. However, one of the things that we'll be shifting towards in the coming months is more of an ephemeral approach. So right now you'll get a cluster during onboarding. You may not touch it for 4 to 6 months. That costs the company quite a bit of money. And so we're going to go more toward we'll have a hot and ready cluster for you. You'll come in and say, request a cluster. How long do you need it for? Choose from a drop-down menu or pick from a date picker and say, I need it for 3 days, need it for 14 days, need it for 60 days, whatever the case may be. And that way we will clean up after ourselves automatically through our infrastructure. We also have the compute sandbox. Obviously with GCP, you have access to create VMs or any infrastructure that you need. We also have an AWS account that some of our audience have access to. You can always request an access to it instead of charging your own credit card for it. There are some changes that are happening with AWS that IT Ops is owning, where they're going more toward a distributed account model instead of one shared account. I don't have a lot more details to share on that today. Just keep an ear out, and I will be sure to announce that on the Demo Systems AWS users channel as we have more information. And in between the two of those, we are looking at a VM sandbox that'll simply be a library of snapshots that you can then spin up an image. Just makes it easy to get a VM if you need it. That's on the horizon, but it's not in the near future. So we're just going to leave that as a future wish list item for the time being. All right. So many of you have probably seen this roadmap that's now deprecated, but I just wanted to share with you, where we've achieved to and how this transitions to what's next. So phase one and mostly in Q4 and the early part of Q1 was about our infrastructure. That was what we were working towards launching at sales kickoff. Phase two is all about the integrations, and we have most of those up and going at this point, as well as the scaffolding for both our catalog and our demo designer. And if you haven't seen it, that's very cool. I'm going to showcase it in a couple minutes. Where this is leading us to is the next set of projects that we're working on through the remainder of Q2. In May, we're finishing up a lot of the enhancements and scaling. A large part of this is now that we know lessons learned on capacity, lessons learned on challenges that we've run into or features that we forgot to implement or didn't have time to implement before, we're getting those finished out. So if you've put something in the issue tracker, more than likely you're going to see that implemented in the next week or two here. Most of June's going to be focused on demo data. You may have seen some posts in the channel and other discussions that are going on about what our Acme company looks like. The ultimate goal that this comes down to is a request from the larger field of, can we have an enhanced demo or additional demos beyond what Snooki Tech offers? So we're starting to put that together. We're starting to build it around the marketing personas in terms of the caricatures and what those buyer personas and engineer personas are. We're also working toward an initiative that Sid has got involved with a little bit in creating project templates. So when you go to any GitLab instance today, you choose create from template. We're going to be adding an additional one there with create a template with some demo data in it. So that's the ultimate outcome of it. However, all the pieces that we're working on building, mostly related to the demo designer, are to help us within CS be able to provide a richer demo, a consistent demo, and a reproducible demo. And I'll show you the demo designer alpha in a couple of minutes just to kind of give you a sense of that. Once we get through the end of June, we should have a pretty solid iteration. And what we want to ultimately do is start disseminating this out a little bit wider. Our partner community is very excited to get started with using some of the tooling. We're not going to be hosting the partner demo system, so we are going to be open sourcing a lot of what we're doing. And the first part of that is those demo projects, right? As well as deprecating I2P. So if you haven't started on your I2P transition, there are some posts in the channel that you can start that process. And I'll be sharing more about how we're replacing it in the next couple slides here. If you're curious where we're headed in the future, don't worry about reading this in its entirety, but this is kind of the broad strokes and the epic level of what we're looking at doing for the remainder of this year. And it will probably be iterative into next year as well. But the reality of it comes down to provide infrastructure to make your lives easy, provide demo data to show the rich story, and provide the support that you need so you don't have to worry about it if you run into problems. So that's the highlights of it. There's a couple things that we can do in the future. We're not too focused on what these are right now. They're more of, pencil and paper, cocktail napkin approach. Ultimately, it comes down to how can we make the GitLab product better with demo data, and how is our infrastructure going to enhance or migrate in within what GitLab.com is doing. All we're really doing is an omnibus as a service approach. And so if we can make that easier, better, consistent, we'll go ahead and do that. There's also a lot of training partner and IT op discussions that are happening. And so what I want to be able to do is empower the wider GitLab community so that everyone can demo. That's kind of the approach that we're taking. So with that, I want to talk a little about the demo designer, and I'll show you this live in just a couple minutes. The demo designer is focused on basically taking the idea of what a project template is or a project import and allowing you to have a dynamic ability to create all the different objects or resources that GitLab offers. The alpha is focused on issue tracking. It provides a good example. And one of the big highlights that we have here, it solves the stale date problem. So if you ever try to import a project from 4 months ago, the dates are all 4 months old, it doesn't show current. With the relative date system we put in here, we use January 1st, 2020 as the today value whenever importing a project. And any dates that are in this database are before or after that. So you can show projects that are in progress, multiple versions that are planned on the roadmap, so on and so forth. All of this is built on top of the GitLab API. And what we end up doing is creating a database, and you have what are called playbooks, and each playbook runs against it. So if you're familiar with infrastructure as code, or Vladimir has a question in the doc that I'll be answering in a couple minutes about demo data as code, this is kind of what this is really going down to. We're using a database approach, and what I would like to ultimately do is make this so that we can mix and match, as well as create a catalog where you can see here's all the topics that we have as a company and what we can possibly demo, use cases, go-to-market strategies, different industries or verticals, and then have a playbook where you hit run, it will build out your sample project, group, or an entire instance with all the data that you need to showcase the richness of that data. So that's the ultimate vision of where this is going. We're iterating along the way as we go. And we have also, as of 2 weeks ago, have the backing of our QA team who's helping with some of the demo data generation and some of the tooling behind the scenes, and ultimately integrating some of the value that we create here into the GitLab product, into the import project area when you go to create a project, and making this part of the demo data area where playbooks may be listed. So stay tuned for more on that. I'll show this more in just a couple minutes, but feel free to bookmark the video and the step-by-step tutorial if you haven't tried it. Definitely check it out. And where the demos data goes is we ultimately, right now, you have to create your own demo stories. Some of us have some that others are using. That's fantastic. But the concept is we want to create a fake company that has all of the different elements in it, whether it's by industry, whether it's by go-to-market use case, and so the different features that showcase it, and then be able to add additional features to that as new monthly version releases come out. The playbook can be enhanced. And so instead of having an old template we have to rebuild, we can simply say, hey, new feature came out. There's a new API resource that connects to that feature, so we can add data to it. We add that in, we edit the playbook, we add those 3 elements, and every time this project is run, it iterates and adds more value on top each month as we go. On the right-hand side, this is just a draft. There's a discussion going on in the demo systems channel right now about what do our products or what do our subdivisions look like that caters to the different industries or verticals. And we're going to be enhancing this to include some of the use case and the go-to-market strategy that we see on our product marketing pages. So this is just a scaffolding for what's to come. And the demo designer is the piece to go through that. In Q3, so I know that's still a few months away, but I wanted to give you an assurance with the I2P transition. Right now, your Kubernetes clusters that you have are not going away. With the new demo cloud, we do have an instance cluster that's running there. We are aware that there are some challenges with it. We're working through those, and a lot of it's just kind of learning lessons, and we find things that work and what don't work. If you are looking for a workaround that you don't have the stability that you're looking for, you can still connect your cluster to the new demo cloud as a group level cluster or a project level cluster as you see fit. And that way you can have control and have the keep control administrative rights that you need. Ultimately, what we're trying to go to is right now, all of our Kubernetes clusters cost us a lot. So right now it costs us about 180 grand a year with some of the new changes that Google's put in for the cluster management fee. And what we want to do is move toward an ephemeral model so things aren't left running all the time, and that could have significant savings. So keep an ear out. We're not going to be doing anything on this until at the earliest July, if it moves up the timeline, but more than likely August and September is when we're going to be focused on this. And we'll be sure to loop you in advance and kind of show you what we're doing and let you thoroughly test it before we flip off the switch. So don't worry too much about it right now, but just know that there are some changes to Kubernetes coming in the future. The AWS side I mentioned before is the IT ops team is getting involved in working on some distributed accounts. Don't worry too much about it. However, if you need AWS access today, simply post in the demo systems channel, and I can get you an account spun up there without a problem. So if you need that, fantastic. We've also built our entire environment with Terraform and Ansible. And what we're going to end up doing is open sourcing this for our partner community to kind of get, kick the tires a little bit and see if it works for them, if it doesn't. And then eventually help merge this in to enhance our go-to-market implementation with our professional services offerings, as well as our engineering distribution team, where we're trying to make it easier for people to spin up GitLab and some of the lessons that we've learned with it, right? And part of this will be open sourcing some of the code and the tools that we've been doing. So with that, we're going to transition to the demo in just a second, but I want to show you how to add features that we may or may not have. So what we've ended up doing is simplifying the approach. When I started, I had a bit of a structured plan to it. I've tried to loosen it up a little bit to adapt to your changing needs. As you need help, we can be able to support that. We do have planned projects that are on our issue tracker. Feel free to check that out at your convenience if you're curious what we're working on. If you add things to the feature requests, what we're doing is we're grouping those together into the different weekly projects as they relate to the headspace efficiency that we're working on. So feel free to report the issues, but if you're just trying to figure out how does this work, can you look at this for me, simply post in Slack and let's keep it easy. So start with Slack and then we'll tell you if you need to create a separate issue for it if we can't get to it right away. So that comes down to the support. I want to do a serious hat tip to Cristiano, who's been helping with the demo systems as kind of a part-time side job in addition to his full-time regular job as a technical account manager. And he's been helping provide support within the EMEA region, as well as in the US region after hours his time, primarily on the Kubernetes support. But I just want to thank him for all his help with everything that we're going on. We are aware of some of the Kubernetes challenges. And so it's kind of a 3 steps forward, 1 step back. We're getting better, but it just takes time to debug some of it. And if you do run into challenges that we can't fix, again, our issue tracker. One of the things I've tried to do just to keep the noise down for everyone, I know it's a little bit of sprawl, is there are different Slack channels for different systems that you need support with. And so the demo systems channel has 120 people in it, give or take. And each of those sub channels has 20 to 30. So as you need support, we're not broadcasting as wide, right? So that's what those channels are for. So with that, let's relate back to what we saw earlier. So an overview of the demo cloud, the container sandbox, the compute sandbox. Here's the slide that tells you how to get access to it today. All of the discussion that we're going to have moving forward, within the discussion today is on the demo cloud itself and how we use that omnibus instance, how we get access to it, and a short preview using the demo designer. But if you do need access to the container sandbox, if you don't have it, you need access to AWS, here's the ways to go ahead and do that. So let's look at the demo cloud specifically in relation to what I2P was and what we have now. So there's a web application that's gitlabdemo.com, and this basically provides the authentication portal as well as access to all the metadata or anything that helps you provide the tooling to use GitLab or to use the demo environment. And so we're going to, I'll show you that in just a couple minutes here. There's the omnibus instances. Most of you have been using the US one. The EU one will be available shortly. And then we also have shared runners and an instance level Kubernetes cluster to handle the CI jobs. If you want, you can do a bring your own cluster. We also have Jenkins and Jira set up there. They are a kind of an empty account. There's not a lot of demo data in them, but they are connected to make your life easy. And I would suggest checking out the tutorial for Jenkins if you're just getting started. And it kind of gives you a step-by-step walkthrough to avoid any connection issues or anything that you're missing on it. If you want to look at this from a view, feel free to skim this slide on your own. I'm not going to talk through it on this call, but it does provide a holistic graphic view of what you're connecting to and how you're working through it. So ultimately, you start in the portal, you end up in the Omnibus instance, and you can integrate or connect to anything you need. So if you haven't already, I would definitely suggest bookmarking the documentation site. Some of these docs are going to be moving into the handbook. We've been balancing the act of what goes in the handbook versus what's on the documentation site. But the tutorials here are going to be especially helpful if it's your first time checking this out. And so you can just visit docs.gitlabdemo.com and you'll find tutorials in the left-hand sidebar. Once you're logged in, a lot of your time is going to be focused on the Omnibus instance itself. And so what you're ultimately going to do is, once you're authenticated, the demo portal creates your account through our own internal SSO system on the Omnibus instance. And so what will end up happening is you'll see, here's the Omnibus instance, here's the link to the dashboard in the group, and you'll simply sign in with the same credentials that you created on the portal. As you connect to other integrations, you'll use those same user account credentials across all the demo resources. If there's anywhere where we don't have those credentials, we'll simply provide them to you, and you can simply copy and paste them. And as we go forward. So most of what we're going to look at next is specifically inside of that group.